everybody. Thank you all for coming on to another episode of Orange Grove 55. We're going to talk about DCA, the future of Disney California Adventure. I brought on a great panel, my good friends. I'm going to introduce the panel right now. We're going to get into everything California Adventure and even a little bit of Paradise Pier Hotel sprinkled over the top. Start off with Mr. VashSky. Mr. Vash, where can they find you on social media? And welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, great to be here. I am so excited for today's topic. Oh, man, it is great. Best place to interact with me is right over here at VashSky, just like it's spelled right there. And best place to see me is on your channel at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news. Squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Yes. And Mr. Family Man 23, welcome back. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And where can they find you on social media, sir?
You can find me on YouTube at I almost had it. Disney Family Man 23. And you can also find me on Instagram under the D23. What am I saying? Family Man.
That's next year, George.
See, I got D23 on the brain. Under the Disney Family Man 23 banner, and also on Twitter at Disney George.
Perfect. And Rudio, where can they find you on social media, sir?
Before I do that, I just want to make sure I got reservations.
You got reservations? All right. There you go. Oh, yeah, George, we got to get you in there too, buddy.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
There you go. You're in.
No problem. I got you, Rudy. I got you.
Thank you. Let me grab my map here. I'm on Instagram and on TikTok at Rudio. That is where you can find me.
Perfect. All right, so let's dive into the future of Disney California Adventure. This park is a lot of fun to discuss, in my opinion, because it's kind of an underdog story. You know, it's kind of the claw its way to the top. It's in the shadow of this legendary park, Disneyland. So it's fun. I think this park is really fun to discuss the future of what is possible here. So we're going to start off with Pixar Pier. Because there's, it's a little bit of a fixer-upper, as they say in Frozen,
Or in home HGTV.
So, Rudio, I'm gonna start off with you, buddy. Pixar Pier. What are your thoughts for the future of this area?
So I was at D23 2017 when Pixar Pier was actually announced, and I thought to myself, Pixar, it has its fair presence in DC already with Monsters Inc. and Toy Story Mania at the time. Those were the only two big attractions that Pixar had in the park. So I thought to myself, you know what? This will be a nice little overlay because they were distancing themselves away from the boardwalk theme. So to bring characters in there that we all know and love, WALL-E, Inside Out, the Ferris wheel, and Lamplight Lounge, it seemed like a great idea to me. I didn't end up going to Pixar Pier probably until a year after it had opened and the hype had died down because there was that big event where they were charging a ridiculous amount of money to preview it. And I thought to myself, it's just the boardwalk. It's
it was like $300, right?
Road over the years, it's just got new skin on it. But I wasn't impressed. I love Incredicoaster. It's probably my third favorite ride in the park, but I just wasn't in love with it as much as I wanted to be into it. There's one thing that I'd like to do to change it up a bit.
Okay.
If you guys go around the corner, so the proper entrance to Pixar Pier, to anybody's knowledge, is the bridge that resides the Lamplight Lounge and the shop that's right adjacent to it. That is the proper entrance to it. We're going to go around. We're going to go past the boardwalk pizza and pasta. We're going to go to Goofy's Flight School.
Okay.
We're going to go to Corn Dog. What is that? Corn Dog Palace or
Castle?
Corn Dog Castle. Sorry, my royalty properties aren't up there. And Little Mermaid. And we're also going to go to the Wilderness Lodge, or what other people like to call it, the up area. I'd like to change that up a bit.
Hmm.
I want to see Coco in the parks.
Okay.
So if that means taking out Little Mermaid, expanding that show area for a proper Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos boat ride, I would love to see something like that. If that's not in their budget, and I know that area, if you're not familiar with it, is very close to the Grand Californian Hotel.
Absolutely is.
So this idea is very far-fetched, but bring Slinky Dog.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I would love for our park to have Slinky Dog. I know that it's a tight space, and Slinky Dog takes up a lot of property, but I would like to see something done with that space.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they don't. To me, Goofy's Flight School is a nightmare. Not only for the legs of anybody who's above 5'6", but just for the people who are just. I don't like that style of roller coaster. I don't like. It's very carnival style, and that's just not something I'm really into. Little Mermaid was great 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The show scenes are great for what they are. The Under the Sea show scene and the Ursula animatronic are great, but I just want to see something different in that area.
As long as she keeps her head on,
that does happen.
I agree. I want to echo your sentiments, Rudio. I would love to see Coco in DCA. I think it's a natural fit on so many levels. Number one, Mexican culture is a huge part of California, massively, a massive part of California. On top of that, it's Pixar. So for both of those reasons, it fits great in a DCA. So I would love to see something like that. And I think Coco, it was such a visually gorgeous movie, and the music was beautiful. And to have, like you said, like a boat ride or some sort of elaborate dark ride where you can kind of experience that world would be incredible. And I think it would be an incredible fit for DCA. I absolutely love it. I would love them to find a way to have both. I do love Little Mermaid too. My heart is with that movie because, I do love Howard Ashman and that whole era of animation. And it took so long for them to get Mermaid a ride. If they can fit both of them in there, that would be ideal. Or even put Mermaid in Fantasyland. I'm cool with that. Just give her a ride over there, then that's cool,
Yeah.
But Coco should be at DCA. Absolutely. Dre, what are your thoughts on a Coco ride, a Coco Dark ride coming to Pixar Pier? What are your thoughts on the future of Pixar Pier?
We've talked about it before, but I mean, honestly, a Coco ride would just be fantastic if they could, like a little Mexican village,
Yes.
maybe with subtle coastal themes just to go alongside because there's a body of water next to it. That stuff would be just be incredible. I would really, really welcome it. Really, really, really would love that. Would love that a lot. Look. You get rid of all those things. I think there's a fair bit. It's tough because it's like right next to the Grand California who expanded for their DVCs and so forth. So you might have to take up a little bit more. Maybe get rid of the Golden Zephyr and stuff.
Cool
maybe
with
Jumpy. Yeah, Jumpy Jellyfish. I know.
Jellyfish, get it.
No love lost here. That's for sure. That is for sure. But no, I think I really do like that idea. I dig it.
Absolutely. George, what are your thoughts on the future of Pixar Pier and Rudio's idea of a Coco Dark ride?
Well, I first have to say, because again, I had this conversation with Vash, and all the other lands at DCA need the touch of Walt Disney Imagineering, to add, take out, upgrade. Pixar Pier needs Jesus. That's so. That's just. I mean, for me, I get the pier theme, and especially because they need that pier as far as like the illusion with World of Color You take away that whole entire pier, it throws off the illusion of World of Color, and Disney is not going to let go of World of Color. So it's pretty much, the pier is what it is. It's rethemed, it's reskinned. I do love the Incredicoaster. I do wish that some of the technology would be updated and not have Jack on a stick sort of thing. Like have that enclosed where they can kind of have like a dome type thing that as you're going through the bunny slopes that you could have Jack kind of morphing throughout like an LED screen. That to me would be really cool. As far as with Rudio's Coco, right? Coco, if nothing else, needs to be represented in DCA. Out of, I think, any other Pixar film, Coco would be the one. I do agree with The Little Mermaid. I do feel that it would have been better at Disneyland, and I know at the time, it was coming over also with New Fantasyland, so they wanted to have a dual kind of both coasts for The Little Mermaid. But based off of the queuing that we have in New Fantasyland, as far as in Florida, the one in DCA, it's just basically like a seaside building, and you enter in to ride a ride based off of The Little Mermaid. You're not moving into the world of Little Mermaid, for me anyways, in comparison. Having said that, that building, take Little Mermaid out, eventually put it in Disneyland, because I really feel like it shouldn't go away permanently. And where you have the Wilderness Explorers for Up, I say that building, kind of turn it into an Up e-ticket attraction, which I actually had in my mind for multiple years. You have that swinging pendulum type of ride that we all thought that it was going to be for Spider-Man. Well, every time that I watch the movie, it kind of takes me back to the dog chase. And Carl and Russell they have their little backpacks on, and the rope is tied to the house. Well, what if you suspend people in a seat that's strapped to a cable, and the back part of the seat is designed to look like a Wilderness Explorer backpack? And you have this 360-degree screen in a show building, and you're actually going through the sequences of the chase in South America, where you're swinging back and forth as the house is floating above you.
Nice. That would be incredible. You can even actually, an upright has a lot of potential. You can even do like what we talked about in our Universal video with like the scissor lift, Dre, like that scissor lift.
Yeah.
Put that house on a scissor lift. You pack people in, and the thing goes up, and they kind of do something similar like that with Rise of the Resistance with that transport vehicle. It's kind of like you're all standing there and you're kind of going through. You can kind of have a situation like that where it's the house, and there's like George mentioned with the screens, you look out the window and you're flying, but the whole house is on a big scissor lift. It would be pretty cool. There's a lot of potential. In regards to Pixar Pier, I'm torn on it, because I do think that a seaside pier does need representation at a park about California. It does make sense. I understand that. But I just want them to kind of retool it, at least. If they're not going to completely retheme it to something like, personally, if it was up to me, I would do like an American waterfront, like Disney Sea style, elaborate, like seaside community, whatever. We talked about that in another video, but obviously like that kind of money might not be readily available. So if you're going to do the Pixar Pier thing, just kind of clean it up a little bit and kind of make it a little more cohesive. Try to, I think it was really foolish of them to make the Incredicoaster like mid-century. I get it. The Incredibles was kind of mid-century themed, but it doesn't fit with the Victorian stuff that you have next door with Midway Mania.
You know what I say, honestly, to update the Incredicoaster? If this goes well with Tron, get Elastigirl's bike.
Oh, that'd be cool. That's interesting.
Retheme the storyline, and you can possibly have a Tron-like style roller coaster at DCA, and just kind of retheme the track where it would fit well with the bike, and have the story around Elastigirl.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. That would be very, very cool.
The one thing that I always tell people is with Pixar Pier and the Mickey's Fun Wheel, or what we call Pixar Pal Around, why is Mickey Mouse the emblem that you see front and center, and not the Luxo ball or the Luxo ball?
I think it has to do a lot with Instagram culture. I think that Mickey has been so popular with selfies and all that stuff that the ball wouldn't have the same impact. And unfortunately, the theme kind of got the back burner when it came to that decision, because they were more worried about people taking pictures in front of it and becoming like free publicity. The theme took the back seat. So they did like this half-ass kind of thing where the front was Mickey, the back was Pixar, you know?
Well, they did neighborhoods, you know, to your point about the mid-century modern styling of Incredicoaster next to Toy Story Midway Mania, and then it's next to Inside Out. It's just, this neighborhood concept didn't quite work the way I think they wanted it to, you know. And if you're gonna call Pixar Pal Around, man, you got to do something about Mickey. And if if you call it Mickey's Fun Wheel, then it's not Pixar Pier. It's a little bit of a mess, like you said. OG, I would welcome, you know, almost like you can almost do it as an expansion of like the Hyperion Wharf theme and the San Francisco theme going around the pier there, and you can have that kind of translate into a Victorian seaside amusement pier, and so you can keep a lot of the architecture, keep a lot of that stuff there. I think that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna circle back into this area, because the Disneyland Forward stuff might actually have a connection because of where it's located to Pixar Pier, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, there might be some definite connections there. But let's move now to this is for George. We're gonna mosey on over to Cars Land, and I know George has an idea for Cars Land. I wanted to kind of discuss that. George, what do you feel the future of Cars Land?
Okay, so this is kind of far-fetched. You guys are probably going to look at me like I'm nuts after I say this, but pretty much when you look at Cars Land, it's literally a mirror image of Radiator Springs of what you see in the film, you know, and you pretty much think, well, how can you really expand on something that's basically already set forth and done, you know, so what can be added? So I do know that there's a little piece of property left between I believe it's the northwest part of Cars Land, as if you're walking straight. That's in between Cars Land and where Mission Breakout is, I believe. Yes. Quote me, I don't know if I'm correct. There's a little piece of land there left that they said has potential to expand further back. So I was kind of going through, and I know the films are pretty much, you know, I mean, they're over 15 years old, starting from the first Cars movie. But I think to add some more life into the land, I kind of went back through the three films. Well, not the second one. Let's leave Cars 2 out of that. So I went.
What's Cars 2?
Yeah, what movie do you speak of? I don't remember a Cars 2. Only 1 and 3. I don't know.
And that's exactly what brought me to that conclusion, is because Cars 3 kind of would, for me, be Cars 2. Cars 3 is basically the sequel to the original. And I love the notion where you kind of have like this on the dirt road sort of kind of, forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, kind of like a hick town, sort of speak, with like little bars. And they have the scene with the demolition derby, with the giant bus and everything. So I thought, why not have like a family-friendly type of stunt show, type of comical show based off of a demolition derby, where you have the animatronic characters of the cars kind of integrated off of Ornament Valley, off of Route 66. So it's kind of tucked away in the back, but it would be a nice little addition that's part of Cars Land, but you're not necessarily in Radiator Springs, and it kind of extends the franchise of just not focused on one section of their world.
That would be very, very interesting. Dre, what are your thoughts on expanding Cars Land in that manner, doing a kind of like a demolition derby style attraction or show?
Yeah, I could see it. I love Demolition Derby growing up, by the way. But, always, Pinnacle State Fair every year. Anyway, but no, I'm not. I mean, I think that could work. I think DCA needs more shows. That's for sure. So, that could go along with that thinking. I will say, I think they want that remaining portion, or as much as they can get out of it, to be part of Avengers Campus and to be part of the e-ticket. So I don't necessarily think it's likely. Look, the one thing I was looking forward to that we didn't get, where that kind of new administration building that they have that's next to Luigi's,
Yes,
is being built back there, was actually set aside originally for the drive-in theater restaurant.
Oh wow! Do they have in Florida?
Well, it was a take on that, but if you remember
it was
credits,
supposed to be. Was it supposed to be before it actually was themed for cars? It was just based off of the automobile of Cars. Kevin Rafferty kind of had like that idea, because he was big on Cars, but then when 2006 came and the movie came out, they rethemed it to an IP.
Right. It goes back to that, but I mean, honestly, the biggest inspiration they were going to have for that is if you look at the, post credits or during the credits of Cars 1, they have a drive-in theater as part of that's playing, and all of the Pixar films up to that point are all kind of carified, and so you got the Bugs and they're all cars, and you got the Toy Story, and they're all cars as well. And there's a great kind of inside joke about Ratzenberger, how they use him for every single Pixar film, and they have Maxie, this guy. He's like, hey, that guy seems familiar. I think they're using the same person over and over again. Well, anyway, they were gonna do that, the kind of the sci-fi dine that you said, Orange Grove, in Disney's Hollywood Studios, but do it a Cars version.
Wow.
In Disney California Adventure. That's where the restaurant was going to be, that administration building, and it was just going to lead right off. And it sounded so incredible, sounds so great, but just never came about for whatever reason. I'm not sure.
Wow.
California Adventure needs more indoor dining as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It does. It absolutely does. Rudio, what are your thoughts on Cars Land? I mean, do you think there's any room to expand? Do you feel like there's room for improvement, plussing?
Well, I'll say to George, your idea, 2 ka-chows from me. I like it. But like Vash said, I think they have that room in the back on ice for Avengers Campus. Yeah. I think it's waiting for that e-ticket. So I just don't see them expanding much more than they already have for Cars Land. I can see them having a little bit more wiggle room with the attractions that they currently have, maybe upgrading some show scenes, adding more characters like Cruz from Cars 3. We don't really see much of her in the parks, so maybe possibly bringing in more characters like that, but I think they're happy with the product that they have right now. I know just from guests who come into California Adventure for the first time, they're mind blown by just how it is right now. And if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, there's a lot more stuff in California Adventure that I would probably touch before Cars Land for sure. I mean, Pixar Pier is definitely one of them. Yeah. Hollywood Land, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Hollywood Land,
Cars Land saved DCA's vibe.
Absolutely.
At that time, it was their saving grace card, because it was like on its road to disaster.
It put Disney California Adventure on a map where it's like, this is one that you can kind of tag onto your vacation. Now it's a must-do. It was a huge part of that. The one thing I will say about Cars Land, I know, other places need more work, and I understand that, and I get it. And please, take whatever money that you were going to do for Cars Land and put it over those areas, because they, like Disney Family Man say, they need Jesus. But the one thing I will say is Radiator Springs Racers, can we get holiday overlays for that?
That would be cool.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be the one thing that I would like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to also say one thing that California Adventure, I think, that was added in 2012 that's absolutely brilliant, along with Cars Land, is Buena Vista Street. absolutely
Parts.
brilliant. And the reason why I love it so much is that it's because Disney. It's a perfect bookend to Disneyland. Main Street.
Absolutely.
Main Street was Walt's early life, his childhood, Marceline, Missouri. You know, and Buena Vista Street is really like his later years when he's in his like early 30s, I think, when he was trying
On the come up.
What was that?
On his come up, like basically coming into Southern California and making a mark on it. That's basically how I tell people.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, that young man Walt Disney that just arrived to the Hollywood. It's such a perfect bookend to that childhood Walt of Marceline, Missouri. The way they did that was so brilliant, so perfect for DCA. I absolutely love that. And that was one of the things I think that really put, along with Cars Land, DCA on the map, because DCA has one of the best entrances for a Disney park, in my opinion. I'm in love with Buena Vista Street.
Speaking of,
to Disney California Adventure.
Didn't play that earlier.
Yes.
I completely agree with you, Orange Grove. When I in 2012 for the reopening of DCA, when it was all done, I mean, we had worked with construction walls for years and years and years, and when it was finally all done, I was most blown away with Buena Vista Street, and I knew the importance of it because it sets the tone, it sets the stage, it sets expectations, and it was just everything was raised, and that signified even more than Cars Land to me. That was the rebirth of DCA, and it actually had heart, it actually had soul. You know, and I had kind of. You know, I was actually at that D23 Expo where they went into a lot of it. They had the model on display, and I was just like, "Oh man, this is so cool." And they talked about it and how, you know, they put so much heart, they put so much love into that. The tiles, the textures, even the kind of you know, what they use for ground coverage. You know, it changes textures, you know, multiple times. The lighting, everything, chef's kiss, perfect.
And it was such. The way you know Disney gets it right is when the new thing feels like it's always been there. It's like the Fantasyland that Tony Baxter had in the early 80s. You know, the new Fantasyland in the 80s. It's like it's always been there. It's such a perfect upgrade to what was there with the medieval stuff. It was such a perfect upgrade to that it just always feels like, hey, this has always been Fantasyland, even though it's fairly new, 30 years or more. But that's how you feel about Buena Vista Street. It's like it's always been there. And that's how you know Disney got it so perfect, is when you feel like it's always been there, they did it right. It doesn't feel like an add-on. It doesn't feel like an overlay. No. It just feels like such a perfect, no-brainer kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I forgot, like, the other day where I was watching something, and they showed the sun in the wave pool that came along with it.
Oh, yeah.
And that was wiped away from my memory. I totally forgot that was there. And we're not too distant from that. That's 11 years ago that was there. So for Disney to have that imprint in my mind of Buena Vista Street, maybe it was because Buena Vista Street, I was there almost every 3 weeks or every month when it was free, but I was growing to love it. Like when I first went into DCA, I took like a 2-year break from it and came back in 2014. And like Vash was saying, it signifies 2.0. Like just seeing the walls and seeing them construct it and then seeing the final product, it meant more to me to see Buena Vista Street than to see Cars Land. I'll be completely honest with you guys.
Totally.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
DCA was one of the great comeback stories of the Iger era. I mean, it really was. I mean, going to that park before that renovation and then going to it now. I know people complain about certain things. I mean, we've talked about Pixar Pier and things like that, but it's still 1,000 times better than what we had in the early 2000s. I mean, it's an incredible transformation.
Immeasurably. And you know, it's just the storytelling, the craftsmanship. It's just all this stuff. I mean, you remember like they had licensed music when you walked in, you know, like
Beach Boys.
Beach Boys. Oh my God, if I had to hear that.
They do that during Food and Wine. So we'll say that's still around, but it's just not as big.
At least it's kind of a novelty and not just every single day, you know. Oh my gosh. But I just Man, I can't tell you. I can go on about it for days. I just love it. The trolley and like Orange Grove said, it's a perfect bookend. If you were to walk from the hub to Main Street to Disney California Adventure, you see almost like the progression of styles going from the turn of the century to the 1920s, 1930s, even in like the lighting and how the lighting technology got better, how conveyance got better, how, everything progressed as they moved further west and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, God, I really love that land.
Me too.
That's where I actually got to meet Oswald. I mean, that was like one of the best moments after the fact, because I never got to see DCA 1.0, thank God, and I got to see it during the construction period when Buena Vista Street and Cars Land were just being built. So my first expectation of DCA was, okay, go in there with an open mind, because I'm literally going to be walking through the turnstiles and walking in between two walls.
Yeah.
That's basically what it was. And then when I went back after the fact, everything was open. It gave me a feeling of transporting into that time era, as if you're walking down on Main Street, and when you get to that central hub, you see Walt and Mickey, where it's like, okay, this is where he ended. But with Buena Vista Street, it's where he began.
Yeah.
$40 and a suitcase. It was, that's all it was. And it shows his journey, and the Carthay Circle restaurant based off of the theater where Snow White premiered. And I mean, you can't get any better than that.
Well, it was so brilliant this is why they're Imagineers. I mean, they really are brilliant. I mean, it was so brilliant, genius to take the idea of the partner statue and to do like a young Walt of like the 30s. I mean, that was such a brilliant move. And to kind of have that take, and then to bring it to ground level where people can be up close and take pictures with it, where that's honestly, in all honesty, I think that's, and I don't speak for Walt, obviously, but I think he would appreciate that statue more probably than the partner statue. Because the partner statue, he's elevated like some god,
Mm-hmm.
The Buena Vista Street statue is more like, he's one of us. We're all taking pictures with Walt and Mickey. He's one of us. I think he would have appreciated that approach a lot more, in my opinion.
No, I think
that's awesome.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool, man. The Imagineers are really proud that they did that. I know Bob Weiss. I mean, Bob Weiss used to talk about, he was in charge of the DCA Rudio. He was just like, I mean, we talk to kids and talk to people who think that Walt never existed, that he was a character along with the rest of Disney characters. They didn't understand that Walt was a real person, that this all kind of goes back to him. And so they dedicated a lot of Buena Vista Street. That's why you have a lot of the kind of the nods to early Walt Disney, just to kind of almost, I mean, for lack of a better term, kind of resurrect his kind of being. Just really, really well done. And I think that's the great thing about Disney California Adventure today. Disney California Adventure 1.0 was very literal. Mm-hmm. Was a very like, hey, we're going to take landmarks as they exist today and then transport them. Whereas DCA of tomorrow, today and tomorrow is very much like the DCA. I'm sorry, the California that never was but always will be kind of thing. Very, it's kind of lost in time, so to speak, and it just brings a new whole life to the park and sets the expectations appropriately.
Yeah, and you know what, Dre, you bring up a great point. When DCA 1.0, when they did that, you're right, it was very literal. And that was I think the downfall really to 1.0 is that you're never going to compete with the real Pacific Ocean. You're never going to compete with the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. So the best way you can approach this is give people a Disney version of California they can't get anywhere else. And that's what they did, Yeah. Rudio. Rudio, what are your thoughts on, we're going to kind of pivot to Hollywoodland. Now this is another fixer upper for sure. Probably maybe even more so than Pixar Pier. But Rudio, what are your thoughts on Hollywoodland, its future, where we go from here, other than like just bulldozing completely?
I was already hard hatting. I had a Bob the Builder right next to me. We're ready to go. I mean, it's juicy. It's got a lot of meat to this topic. Starts from the beginning. I mean, you have the Disney Junior area, you have Hollywood Wieners, hot dog stand. Any for clarification, and that little seasonal shop that's right there. I have no connection to any of those.
Me neither.
Yeah.
It's just those hot dogs or whatever. That was a temporary Band-Aid for people who were really craving a corn dog during the shutdown. That's where they were serving them. I still think they are, but I have no connection to that. George, I know that you guys have had Fill Magic for what, almost 20 years?
18 years.
18 years? Okay. We just got that in 2019, and it's cool, but it kind of too little too late sort of ordeal.
Kind of the wrong venue too, whereas they kind of built the theater to kind of incorporate the show in Walt Disney World. They kind of like shoehorned it into DCA and just didn't quite work as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mind you, I have a soft spot for the Muppets, so that taking away the Muppets kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love. There is things I love about the Hollywoodland, and that's the animation part of it. The animation studios, Turtle Talk with Crush, learning to draw a character, and not just one character. You're getting like a whole long list daily, and getting that interaction with the animators, and being able to go into those shops and see all these different pieces of art that are just hanging on the walls, whether it be framed or whether it be ceramic pieces. Like, I love that aspect of Disney, or the shopping aspect of Disney. Those are my favorite type of shops. It's very niche, but I love it. As far as the backlot is concerned, right now it's Disney Plus Land. It's where a lot of those photo ops are being placed back there, and they're hits. A lot of people are still waiting in line to take pictures with them. And then you also have that stage 17 retail area, and that right now is one of the more popular spots, I would say, between all of the merchandising in Disney California Adventure, as it's pretty much the Marvel hub for if you want anything Avengers related, comic books, action figures, shirts, you name it, they got it, sort of ordeal. So I think they're really liking that. Hopefully they can make it a permanent, or create another retail space within Avengers Campus. That way it's not taking up so much space back there. The other thing that a lot of people like back there is the Michelada area. There's always a line for that refreshment area that's back towards where Monsters Inc. is at. And I can see them creating more areas for people to eat and drink back there, because there's so much space back there that they're just not utilizing. The Captain Marvel meet and greet, there's a whole back stage area that's used to be Hollywood and Dine.
Right.
If everybody remembers that, it's just not being used, and they used it for the Tron arcade when that was happening. But it's just, there's so much space back there that's just not being utilized. And I'll say it right now, Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before. I don't see it lasting within the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Not long
It's dead ride walking at this point. I mean, Monsters Inc. isn't going to last. They're kind of figuring out what they want to do, I think, with Hollywoodland. And once they do, like Monsters Inc., I think will be gone. I think it's going to be out of the equation. I wish they would just pick an era, whether it be the 50s or the 60s, or just an interesting era, and just completely transform Hollywood. And like they did with Buena Vista Street, pick an era, stick with it, and have that whole street become really, really immersive. 1950s Hollywood, 1960s Hollywood, or whatever, but just have a real cohesive theme all the way through it. I do say though, Rudio, all those meet and greets, those Marvel meet and greets, I think are a sign to come. I don't think those are by accident. I think they're sort of conditioning people to kind of get used to Marvel back there because
Absolutely.
they're probably thinking about moving more Marvel in there, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. Mr. Family Man, what are your thoughts on Hollywoodland?
Basically, if you can even call it that anymore, because I mean, it's more so. I mean, I get where it kind of segued from, Carthay Circle and into more aspects of Hollywood. Where you have the theater that used to hold Aladdin and then Frozen. You don't have that anymore. You have the Hollywood Tower Hotel, which now converged into Mission Breakout for Marvel, and then you have that whole other section where there was the Muppets was taken out, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire taken out, so things were just like coming in and out. No one really kind of figured like what would be a home sort of based attraction that can fit for Hollywoodland, because it's, I mean, yes, you do have the Turtle Talk with Crush, the animation building, but I think they still have that ill fate sort of stance, sort of how Florida has, because we also have the animation building, and it was big in the 90s, early 2000s. That's where Mulan was made, actually, in the Florida animation building at Hollywood Studios. Majority of that film was made there, and it's like, along with the 2D animation, those animation buildings don't really have a lot of purpose anymore. And unfortunately, it's sad, but I mean, then you have Monsters, Inc., where, I'm sorry, Vash will probably agree with me, they got rid of the greatest attraction that ever was in DCA. I mean, come on. I mean, you can't forget this.
Superstar Limo?
Superstar
Absolute. The pinnacle of
How many of us
Imagineering.
in this room can actually say that they rode Superstar Limo? Raise your hand. Vash, what did you honestly think of Superstar Limo?
I remember it like it was yesterday. When we went to DC, as soon as, we talked about Buena Vista Street. The reason we talked about it is because as soon as you walk through those gates, it was like, not quite the budget that we expected. Is it? And it's like, okay, well, maybe the rides are better. And the first one we go to is Superstar Limo, because obviously it's a shorter wait.
Same here. Yes,
And and you go on that thing and you're just like, what is going on? Like, what? Who thought this was an idea? And you could just tell that it was affected by committee. It was affected by historical circumstance. And it was just, keep in mind, guys, 6 years prior, we get Indiana Jones Adventure. And the one dark ride that Disney California Adventure gets, the only one, is this. And growing up as a boy, me and my brother, that was definitely that was a shock. For sure.
Well, I think that Disney really struggles. I think Disney's trying to find its voice within the Hollywood theme. Because you see here in California Adventure, it's a mess with Hollywoodland.
Yeah,
and even Hollywood Studios, it's kind of all over the place. It's you're experiencing the world, but then you're backstage, but then they don't know what they want to do with these Hollywood lands, these parks. They got to figure. I think Disney has to really sit down and figure it out, and then go into these like the land and the park, and just really go in and do it and make it cohesive.
I think for me, as you guys already touched point on the Monsters Inc. attraction, you can't have a Pixar attraction all the way on the opposite side of Pixar Pier. You're going to, nope, not going to say if, when Disneyland Forward comes to fruition, that, they expand on Pixar. Again, there's going to be more Pixar possibly, and then you're going to have Monsters Inc. over here in the corner. It's not going to be. It's only in time it's going to come out, and I feel that Orange Grove, I think actually you had mentioned that if that section becomes more towards Marvel, have like a Tony Stark type of feel, because he's like that big hotshot Malibu type of person. It fits right in like the Hollywood theme. expand on that part where they can maybe do something with Iron Man.
Right. That would be cool. That would be cool, and that would connect to Avengers Campus. So it has potential. What were you gonna say, Dre?
Oh no, I was sorry. I was just about to say. I think what's holding back Hollywoodland is really the Imagineers. Kind of like, if we would have gotten Eastern Gateway, that's where Avengers Campus would have been. That's where the Avengers, attractions and shows and all that would have been, was there. But when they got that kind of pulled away from them, that kind of, gunked up the works, so to speak. I don't think they would have replaced Bugs Land, at least not yet, had that not been taken away. So I think that's what's kind of holding it in this kind of state of
limbo,
limbo.
Yeah, I agree. I think a Bugs Land would have lasted a little bit longer because it would have been adjacent to Pixar Pier, so it all still would have kind of connected itself between a Bugs Land, Cars Land, and Pixar Pier.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hollywoodland is really at least part of it. At least that part where I do see the Marvel, the Avengers encroaching into Hollywoodland. Maybe not taking it over completely. I do see them coming into it a little more than they are now. But I would like to see some other franchises go in there. I want to see a little more variety in DCA, because if Marvel takes over all of Hollywoodland, the park is like 50% Marvel and 50% Pixar at that point. I want to see other stuff. I want to see Mickey, Minnie, or something else in that park.
Disneyland Forward.
Well, okay.
Yes.
How much weight? How much weight do you think there was to the rumor of that black box ride that was potentially going to be announced at D23 2019?
Yeah,
like that would have been amazing if they were able to program something that was constantly coming out with a movie. Like that would have been amazing to see. But
I think that rumor was probably legitimate, because that's exactly the kind of thing Disney loves to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably going to happen. I think the pandemic, because that was planned for DCA and Hollywood Studios, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think that concept's still on the table. I think it's coming. I think it's coming in one shape or some shape or form. The interesting thing is we've seen a kind of as much as we've seen this kind of shifting of the corporate structure of Disney itself, we have seen a little bit. I mean, if you've been paying attention, Imagineering has shifted around too, and a lot of people believe that they're setting up to have pop-up experiences across the country. Utilizing Imagineering tech. And I think that black box, if it doesn't make its way into a park, I think that's where we find it later on.
Interesting. Yes, that's very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I remember hearing about that actually about a year ago or so, where they were talking about those pop-up experiences, about, kind of taking like the parks across the country. Because I remember thinking immediately of Disney Quest. I was like, oh man, this reminds me of the Disney Quest days where they were trying to,
it would be more similar to Disney on Ice. That's kind of a little bit where you would have kind of traveling, kind of almost shows that pop up for a little bit,
venue type thing. Yeah,
correct, and then would go away. They do it right now in Asia. They've done it, I think, twice now, where like they'll decorate like a street, like heavily theme a street at night, and then you can drive through it. And
Disney actually did that in my area back in 1996 to promote Walt Disney World's 25th anniversary. They actually traveled the country and had like a pop-up castle, so to speak, and they had a stage show, and it was adjacent to one of our more popular malls, where after the show they had the characters go in there for meet and greets.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I can tell you one thing. Pennsylvania, that is like number one visitation for Orlando. Like number one. If it's not number one, it's way up there. I mean, they get huge amount of visitation from that. Now, Rudio, I did cut you off just a little bit. What were you going to say about the greatest Imagineering project ever, Superstar Limo? What were you going to say there?
Just the nightmare fuel that was the first thing you see when you get on the attraction, which is that like agent with him and the cigar. I remember I was 13 at the time, and I was just so terrified of that figure. Like, what am I about to see? Because you're going down a dark, like, alley, and that's the only thing you see that's illuminating off the screen. I said, am I about to encounter this thing at the very end? Like, just so terrified of what I'm looking at.
Hey, you got to get in the show. What are you doing? You got to get in the show. And then that and the Joan Rivers. That was like, whoa, you know. That was pretty scary. That's pretty
nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Lit. Nightmare fuel lit. That's what it was.
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy. And, you know, that just kind of goes back, like, experiencing that DCA 1.0. I think I just appreciate this current iteration just 1,000-fold, because that was such, and the sight lines back then too. And not to get too nerdy, but the sight lines back. George, you never went to DCA 1.0.
I never got to see it in person. No,
the sight lines were so bad. Like, you could like literally see like Anna. Like, you have some glimpses here and there now, but it's not terrible. But mind you, when it first opened, there was no Tower of Terror. So that big building wasn't there. There was no Cars Land. A lot of these
power poles.
There was what?
The power poles back there. You can kind of see them.
You still see them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were all like just out there in the open. You could just see. It was just an open area. I mean, you would be shocked. You would be absolutely.
I can imagine, because I mean, at that time, hearing it from John Hench himself saying, I would have rather it just stayed a parking lot.
He did say that. Yeah. And it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I think that it blows my mind how bad it was. It really
was one big pile of shit.
Yeah, it's
one more, I think there's one more playback, Dre.
Oh,
That is one big pile of shit.
that was.
It was.
That was.
It was. And,
It's DCA 1.0. I'm sorry, guys. It really sucked. Like, it really was bad.
And the pier, if you think the pier is bad now, oh my God. I mean,
Okay,
it was way worse back then.
the pier was pretty bad, but they had the best fish and chips right next to, or right where Toy Story Mania is now. They had the best fish and chips that were right there. That's the only thing I missed from there.
Are you talking about Malaburritos?
No, this was just called chips and dips and something else.
It was next to Malaburritos, though, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, really?
Probably.
It was like in that
I mean, if it was based on anything like the 1.0, they could call it fish, chips, and full of shits.
The puns. Oh man.
It's great. It's great. Yeah, it was the pier was pretty bad back then. You didn't have the Victorian anything. It was just cement.
You had
and
a big
everywhere.
burger. Remember Burger Invasion?
Yeah.
Burger Invasion. Oh my God. The McDonald's, the very short-lived McDonald's kind of Disney partnership right there. I will say, I still miss the Westward Ho fries in Frontierland. I still miss them.
Bring them back.
Still miss those French fries, man. And we would do it every time.
We had them in Florida. We had them in Florida in Frontierland. I swear to that was the best thing that they could have added. And yeah, of course they had to take it out.
Oh, the best thing. Couldn't you work on that partnership just to keep those? Oh, man. So good. It's so
good.
frustrating.
It was wild. Let me go ahead and hold on one second. I'm going to go ahead and share you guys.
Mind you, asterisk, everything McDonald's was double or triple the price what you would pay at a regular McDonald's.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's today's prices. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
There it is.
George, this is Burger Invasion in all its glory. This is where the
and you see this, and you see the end part where the flames are coming on. That's basically what happens when I eat McDonald's. So it's like,
it was pretty bad. DCA 1.0 was pretty bad.
Thanks for the visuals, George.
Wow, that is horrible. I'm sorry.
That is one big pile of shit.
This is where the Paradise Grill is now, which is actually a nice little area where that pizza place is, and you can get like the
yeah, that's there.
Wow,
amazing. But let's pivot to we're gonna talk a little bit about.
May I bring up my concept for Grizzly River Run just before we get to Disneyland Forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please, yes.
Yes, please.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Bring up everything you're going to. This is okay. So there was a concept out there
Okay.
for Grizzly River Run to add audio-animatronic bears to the attraction, and they actually did a test where they kind of had like plywood cutouts along the track. They tested it, didn't quite go as they expected, I think, and so they abandoned that concept. My concept, instead of having just generic bears around, do the Country Bear Jamboree bears. Put those around, I mean, Rufus said all those guys. I just put them, Big Al, all of those, and have them serenade to you as you're going through. That would be slick.
Big Al is in that part of the park right now.
Ooh.
Oh,
yeah, he is. He
He's
does
a walk around
people,
character
right?
in that
yes,
part of the park.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So he's there.
I think there was a concept a while ago about bringing the Country Bears back, but do it like in like the basement of the attraction. That way, because there's a lot of like it takes up a lot of space for the park, and it's right in the center. Could we have kind of a jut in and do a show inside of it? They found out that wasn't quite feasible, but I think, man, Country Bears, Grizzly River Run, I think it's perfect. Somebody had art commissioned to show that, some outside firm or whatever, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's a brilliant idea.
That would be flawless. That would be such a perfect way to really add some, not to be corny, but like some Disney magic to it, because that's what that ride is missing, is some animatronics, some music.
It doesn't even have music when you go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It has some quaintness, some charm. Red Road Creek Challenge Trail is that, but man, you just go on there and it's quiet. There's nothing there. Wouldn't it be great to have them serenade their classics? Hey, we got kicked out of Disneyland, but we're doing it right here. We're doing it as we always have. Oh, that'd be so.
Oh man, Dre, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. It kind
But I
of
wonder what the maintenance would be with animatronics and the water being right there. I wonder what that would be. Yeah.
You can build in
figure it out.
little caves and stuff. You can figure it out. Trust me, it's too good.
well, they do it with Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
And Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
Jungle Cruise is out there.
Sure. Yeah.
You wouldn't have to have them do that much. I mean, that's 70s audio animatronic technology. You wouldn't have to maintain it, a whole bunch because you're passing by there so fast. I think you can do it. I think
that would be incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Might as well.
Make it happen. Make it happen, Chapek.
Send the checkbook.
Sign it up. So our last and final thing we're going to kind of talk about, because DCA, excuse me, one of the things they talked about when they were trying to sell the concept for Disneyland Forward was that it could possibly be expansion to the two existing parks. So if we're going to go based on what they were just saying and kind of take it at face value, this area could potentially be expansion for DCA. Now, this area I'm talking about would be right here. This is DCA's, it's Pixar Pier, and then you would go through here, and then this whole little pad right here would be DCA space. What could they put here? I'll start with you, Dre. What could they put in this little area to expand DCA?
I mean, the sky's the limit. Everything that we were talking about, like a Coco attraction, I mean, there is a sizable chunk of land there. And look, we will get to this topic a little bit later on, but look, if Paradise Pier isn't going to be with us, knock that down even opens up more real estate if you really want it to. I will say, I think the Disneyland Forward, they have concepts of like Toy Story Land, a couple of others. I believe Neverland is represented here right now. Again, nothing has been approved from Disneyland Forward. It's just to give an idea of what they can do, the possibilities, like we've said before. But as far as an expansion of these theme parks, the Disneyland one kind of like, I'm not sure. But DCA, I can totally see it. And in a similar vein in how they connect the two parts of downtown Disney, where the monorail platform is and where Jazz Kitchen and Tortilla Joe's is, they have that bridge that connects them. This would be very similar to that. I think it's great. I think it's perfect.
So I was wondering about that, George or Vash. There's been all the speculation about that entry point as far as getting into that secondary area for Disneyland Forward.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a possibility that they can open up, as you can see in that left portion. So right in between where I would say Inside Out and Paradise Grill is at, to make an underground tunnel that brings you into that part of the land. Do you think that's the way they'll bring guests into that area?
I would say Land Bridge is more likely, but look, it's whatever the city of Anaheim wants. I think you could go under, and I think you could go over in a similar vein as what Downtown Disney currently experiences. Listen, I I don't know how, but we gotta get to the other side.
Yeah.
We gotta figure that out because this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're.
Oh.
Orange Grove, I think you're muted there.
There we go. Sorry about that. So Rudio, what do you think about this? Like in terms of expansion, any themes come to mind or any idea? What are your feelings on DCA kind of encroaching into this area?
I mean, the one thing that grasped my attention when I first saw the art was the potential of a Wakanda area, and to be sort of exterior extension of Avengers Campus, because you don't really want Wakanda in that area. Wakanda's always been portrayed as somewhere outside of the Avengers world, somewhere where they just can't touch because it's just so distant and protected. So what other place than to make it in that secondary area, create that world, and to have that big Black Panther statue be that emblem of that land. I mean, just that would signify just so much as far as what goes on with Marvel, and then also for Chadwick. I mean, I would love something like that. Create more experiences with Pixar characters. If we're not going to get a Coco ride in Pixar Pier, maybe we get it in there, possibly.
That's true.
Like I said, I'm itching for the Coco ride.
I'd be down for that. I think that would actually be great because you can really create an immersive little village and everything. That would be actually a great idea. And it's right next to Pixar Piers nonetheless, so it would work.
The one thing that I also want to point out is that big hunk of a tower that is called the Paradise Pier Hotel.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
That is front and center of that area. Me being a local, I'm not really looking for destination hotels in the Anaheim area. I'm the one person that goes for an overnight stay. I'm not staying for the week or for more than one night. Just one night, usually on average. But if I was to come over to the state of California, specifically the Disneyland Resort, Paradise Pier would not be my number one option. Yeah. Even if it is somewhat on property, it's distant. And from the way I've seen it from different perspectives on YouTube, from guests who've recently stayed there, it's not being held up to the Disney standard.
Best Life and Beyond, the YouTube channel, just recently stayed there, and it's all the facilities are dead. They're dormant. They're not being used. It's got one of the smallest pools. You got to do something about that.
And the fact that they haven't changed the name of the hotel says a lot. That means that the hotel is in limbo. Mm-hmm. I think that they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. Something's going on with that hotel. For them not to change it to Pixar Pier, it's been 3 years?
Yeah.
Something's going on with that. What do you think, George? Do you think that this hotel is on its way out? They're going to retheme it? They're waiting?
I think yes and no. I think as far as with Paradise Pier, they're kind of leaving it in limbo right now until they figure out what to do as far as getting, the approval from the city for Disneyland Forward, because, based on the rendering, it's right smack dab in between what is already DCA and what would be considered for the expansion of DCA for Disneyland Forward. And what can help this hotel right now, it's something that's just sitting there out of the three. No one really wants to go in. But if you actually look up based on where the rooms would be to outlook the expansion of DCA, I think would draw a lot of crowds in, as far as for not so much locals, but to get people to travel to Disneyland and say, hey, stay at this hotel. You'll get these gorgeous views within the expansion of the park. And that's sort of kind of like of how with Universal's doing with Epic Universe, they're actually having a theme park where I'm sorry, a hotel within the theme park that goes out into the park. And I think this could actually play to Disney's advantage if they do it correctly. But I think it would only work if they get the green light for Disneyland Forward. Otherwise, this hotel is pretty much just sitting there. It's a building, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think that if they're going to incorporate it into a theme park, the views from the hotel will no doubt be gorgeous. But I also want the views from the theme park to look good too. So they have to fix the building. They have to.
As far as the building it goes, it needs to be rethemed based off of what Disneyland Forward would become. I think since it's leaning more towards on that side of the park, depending on what goes there, I think to Rudio's point, I think Wakanda would be great. I think Zootopia would be great. I think anything that kind of integrates going outside of your own world. So you're kind of leaving the human side of DCA and you're going into the fantastic worlds that Disney has created. And I think that way they can kind of get a better rendition of what Paradise Pier Hotel is. Because as you said, Orange Grove did not even change the name of it.
Right.
It's like this hotel is hit the pause button. That's basically what happened.
Exactly. And George, you are brilliant, my friend. You are brilliant because actually, if they were to turn this into a Zootopia area, you could have like a Zootopia-tized Los Angeles. That could be how the connection to California, and then a hotel in the middle of that whole theme park experience would make sense. It's a Zootopia hotel. It's in the middle of an urban city. I mean, that would just be flawless. Absolutely flawless. That would be a great idea, George.
Thanks.
That is a great idea.
Yeah. Check in the mail. WDI thanks you, sir.
Nice.
Good chat.
Look, if you're not going to get rid of the pier theme, or if it is going to be kind of pier adjacent, I would say, hey, can we get like a Grand Flow kind of situation? It would be so cool to have like a Grand Flow next to a Grand man. Okay, but
I would love that because it's themed to a California hotel in the first place, the Del Coronado.
Yeah. I know exactly.
Sense.
I think it makes perfect. I think it makes perfect sense. The Wakanda theme. I think that sounds really cool. I would like not redo Pandora, but like take a Pandora take on a Wakanda, because we know that the vibranium has kind of affected things around it. That would be kind of cool. It's like something in the vein of that. Make it lush.
The only downside to that is I would love to see Joe Rody be behind that.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
That's an issue.
Yeah. Bring him out of retirement, dust off the earring. Come on, Joe. Come back, buddy.
Come on, buddy.
I still have high hopes for him because even though Tony Baxter was retired, he still puts a lot of input into things at WDI. So I'm kind of hoping that the same goes with Joe Rody, because that guy was he did 2 openings with Pandora and Mission Breakout at the same time. He literally traveled from coast to coast in one day. And I remember him saying, he said, I just hope that I never get that schedule again. Because it's like,
it's funny. I'm surprised I let him on the airplane with that earring.
Yeah.
A lot of metal.
I don't know if that's TSA approved there.
I don't know.
Oh man.
It's very, very interesting. I think DCA has look. Like we talked about this, the 1.0, that's early beginnings. It's only gone up. There's been elements along the way that have been lesser than other elements, what have you. But for the most part, I think the trajectory of the park has been in the right direction. Yeah. And I think we're only going to go up from here. I think if Disneyland Forward gets approved, we'll get that nice little expansion pad. They're going to continue to plus Pixar Pier. Hopefully what Rudio was saying comes to fruition. More Coco. I would love to see more Coco. And and hey, look, on the topic of kind of beta testing with like meet and greets, there's a lot of Coco representation in that back area of the park. They might be testing they might be testing that concept in that back part, by Goofy and Mermaid.
Yeah.
And they might be thinking about that,
Mhm.
So
Hopefully.
yeah, we'll see.
They definitely want more Coco in the park. That I can assure you. I can assure you. It was this close to getting into the Mexico Pavilion in Epcot, but the restaurateurs kind of went back and forth. But I'm telling you, they want Coco in there, so I'm pretty confident we'll get it somewhere.
Cool. Hope so. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming on. I do appreciate it. I'm gonna go down the row. We're gonna start off with Mr. Freshly Squeezed. Vash, where can they find you on social media?
Best place to find me to interact with me is at VashSky. That's right here, right like it's spelled. And the best place to see me is on your channel at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Yes. Mr. Family Man, a.k.a. D23. Where can they find you on social media, sir?
You can find me on YouTube at Disney Family Man 23. Also on Instagram under the Disney Family Man 23. I have no association, folks, with D23 whatsoever.
When's the expo tickets going to go on sale?
Yeah. When are those expo tickets going to go on sale?
But hey, if D23 wants to contact you for a sponsorship, you're open, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm ready. Yeah. As I said, unfortunately, I wish I was. But yeah. You can find me under Disney Family Man 23 on Instagram and also on Twitter at Disney George.
Perfect. Rudio, brother, where can they find you on social media, sir?
They can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at Rudio.
Perfect. Thank you guys for coming on, and thank you all for watching. What do you think is the future of Disney California Adventure? What are your armchair your blue sky kind of proposals, your concepts? And what do you feel about Disneyland Forward and its connection to Disneyland? DCA, the Paradise Pier Hotel, that whole drama. What are your thoughts? Comment below, like, subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and have an adventurous day. Bye-bye.